Kuma's coloration is about 1 in 5,000. You will see that red with the black tipping in the Shiba Inu, the smaller Japanese breed, but you won't see it very often with the Akitas. It was a very recessive trait that was sought after by the Japanese for the dogs because it was considered very special. Now with that color combination, you guys are going to be a little bit spoiled here in the, we're from just outside of Iowa City, and in the surrounding states, there are several puppies from both Naya and sired by Kuma. And Kuma has by and large so true in color. So there are lots of little Kuma clones. Running around in the Midwest area. And so a lot of people are like, yeah, I've seen like 5 of those. Most of them are related to him.
Look at that.
We do have
I'm doing one at a time.
And one in Canada from the bloodlines. These guys are both AKC registered full-blooded Akitas that are certified for hip and elbow dysplasia. And several of Naya's puppies have gone, and grand puppies have gone through the dog show ring to champion level awards, which is very cool. You know, for us, if you're going to do something, you want to do it right. And having that level of wonderful, friendly, socialized dogs that are still really good examples of the breed and can succeed in the show ring is a really big compliment. Now, as far as the Akitas, I know we babbled quite a bit about these guys and their coloration, but the Akitas are actually a dog breed that date back over 5,000 years. Something not a lot of people realize is they've been around for a very long time. They trace their roots back to the wild Matagi dogs in Akita Prefecture outside of Odate in Japan. And they were mountain dogs. At the time, they were hunted by the populace for their meat and their fur, much like wolves have been in our country. And eventually, the locals figured out that if they could capture a young animal, they could train it, and that they were tremendously loyal to their pack. Essentially, when you have an Akita, you become a pack member as their family. It makes training a little difficult sometimes, but they are tremendously loyal. These dogs would be used then throughout history, not just for protection of your home, but for hunting. And as far as protection, you guys are familiar with Japanese houses, right? Really thin walls, and the interior walls are all paper. One of the things that people had to contend with, especially if you lived in a more mountainous region, was your house being invaded by Japanese bear. They're not as big as grizzlies. They're about 4 foot, but that's still kind of terrifying in a bear with claws and teeth. And they would rip into your house to eat your food. And since it was a very populated country and that food was very precious, having an Akita dog that would help drive the bear off and keep them away from eating you or your pantry was a good thing. Now, they would actually, they eventually got to a point where they trained Akitas in pairs to hunt those same bear so that they could have bear meat in their pantry instead. And a nice bearskin rug. But as a pair, the Akitas could actually take down one of the 4-foot bears. Usually if you had a single dog for hunting, the dog would track and corner the bear, and then they would be able to spear it. Now, throughout different periods of history, things went back and forth for praising the dogs and keeping them versus hunting them. Eventually, we got to the point where the Tokugawas took power, and on to the 3rd emperor, Ieyasu. And what happened is one of his advisors decided that, the message from the heavens was that if he wanted to have a long, successful reign as emperor, he needed to protect these dogs. So he passed a series of edicts or laws protecting the dogs. They built temples to them, and they established a career option, essentially, which is one of those jobs that I would absolutely love to have, because what this job was is you were a caregiver and translator for the dogs. Not just, being at the kennel, playing with puppies, and taking care of them, but Akitas, they don't tend to bark very often. They're fairly quiet. They will bark to alert you of a problem or a situation, but they do tend to be big talkers. Anyone that's had a dog before that goes and talks at you, Akitas tend to be big talkers. They don't bark as much, but they will talk. And what happened is the caregivers for the Akitas in Japan, they were required to learn the language of the dogs, because they would go into council for the government, and the dog handler would bring one of these revered Akitas in, and he'd sit and lay there, and if the dog chose to speak and make any noise during this council session, it was the job of the handler to explain what the dog just said to the rest of the council in lawmaking.
Good girl.
Yeah, it was
Good
true,
job, Naya.
but you have to be able to talk back to them in their language of as well as translate for them for what the dog said about, that guy's execution.
They sound like Pomeranians, don't they?
Oh, tabby shoes.
Now,
Tabby
one of
shoes.
the things that kind of brought Akitas to the not just national forefront
You're
of
so
Japan,
sad.
because after Tokugawa lost power and we got to
You're a good
fighting
girl.
in World War II, Akitas had almost become extinct again. They were down in 1934 to about 30 purebred
Nope.
Akitas
Okay.
left in Japan total.